Board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games and comics, we're not gonna shout. We are starting off this streaming with a bit of busy singing, and over here you'll see Paul. I don't know if Paul is particularly tall. Paul is seen in front of their wall with a few games and a curtain, and that's not all. There's some brilliant things that Paul's gonna show. There'll be comics that you might know, or maybe not, but either way, you will know Paul by the end of this day. Board games and comics is what we're talking about. Board games and comics. I'm not gonna shout hello and good morning, good afternoon, good night, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez. This is episode, oh my gosh, 299. Can you believe it? Almost 300 of episodes of Bezzy Beats and Board Game Bladder. And today we are meeting Paul Stapleton, chatting about life. We'll be chatting about how you came to be. What was your childhood like? What was your first memory? Why do you love comics? Because you are a comic creator. You've done some amazing, lovely things and games and the act of creation. What sparks you? I want to talk about all of this. And before we get started, I would like you to give me just a very, very short 30-second shout out to yourself and why did you come on this show?
Well, it's
and hello, Sate. It is lovely to see you. And hello, Nicholas. Lovely to see you too.
Morning to you both. I've been designing board games for about 8 or 9 years now. And prior to that, I was a cartoonist for about 10 years. But I've always been a gamer at heart. So about 8 years ago, I had the chance to kind of mesh the two together and make a board game based on one of my comic series. And since then, it's been board games all the way.
Nice. So it sounds like you kind of left the comic world behind a wee bit. Or
I did to a degree. I mean, I think what it was, around the time when comics and books in general started moving over to Kindle, Kindle didn't serve graphic novels very well. So it kind of got harder to sell physical books. And I didn't really have much interest in sort of tweaking things for a digital screen at the time because they were very limited at that point. And BN1, which was the last comic strip I did, which was about my hometown of Brighton. BN1 is the principal postcode. At one point, and I can't quite remember how now, we had the idea of turning it into a board game instead. So I used the same artwork for that game and then the following one. So that kind of that satisfied my need to draw things. So yeah, I just kind of took a sideways step into board games. I have started to miss doing comics again though recently. I think I could return. I think I'd like to at some point.
Yeah, I think once you're invested in something, you're always going to keep coming back to it. But let's
definitely
get to our regular section, which is, of course, recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So what have you been up to recently? And if you're in the chat, what have you been up to recently?
Yes, yeah. Well, I could do with some ideas actually. Been playing lots of board games. Very lucky that my girlfriend is a big board game fanatic. So we were working through the collection alphabetically through lockdown. But we faltered once we started getting to the games that started with the word space. She started losing interest in those. So been doing lots of that. I really got into the art of foraging last summer, which I'm sort of looking forward to starting again in spring. Made lots of things with wild garlic in and was picking stuff all through the year. That was one of the sort of the silver linings of lockdown because I don't think I'd have thought to do that otherwise. So yeah. So played lots of games and eaten lots of food that we've found or foraged the elements for anyway. So
that does sound super lovely. And oh my gosh, it's Matthew Dunstan. Hello, Matthew Dunstan. It is lovely for you to come this way. Thank you so much. So amazing designer. I'm just going to do a shout out to Matthew Dunstan, MT Dunstan. So if you're not familiar with Dunstan, check out Elysium, all sorts of stuff. And thank you, Xate, Ian, Rob, Aquasulis, and of course, Matthew Dunstan. Thank you for all joining us. And I hope you have a wonderful stay. And we are talking about comics and all sorts of things. My gosh, and hello, Michelle, over from Facebook. Been a long while since I've made it to a stream live, so having time to join you today is definitely a highlight. Oh, that's so sweet.
That's lovely.
Thank you very much. Michelle. And Michelle used to watch ages ago, but yeah, I would say I'm streaming every day at 10 a.m. But if you haven't heard, tomorrow is my 300th episode, and after tomorrow, I'm taking my first day off in quite a while. My recent highlights have, a lot of it has been seeing so many people up for coming back on to help me celebrate episode 300. I mean, people are more than just numbers. It's not about how many, but also about the quality of people. And yeah, I want to concentrate on you in a moment, Paul, but I do just want to make, yeah, it's been amazing kind of having all these people saying, yeah, I'll come onto the show and come back. And some people saying, hey, I can't make it because this Melbourne Toy Fair is actually happening in person and we have some deadlines that I really need to do. And just having people get back to me and let me know, it's really nice. And it should be an amazing show tomorrow. I'm really excited for it. But other recent highlights, I did get my photos done. I did get them sent off to a publisher. I had a brilliant meeting with someone all about the future of the L deck, that there will be some big changes in the next couple of years. I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but you will be hearing some stuff about that soon. Maybe that couple in particular. Watch this space. So that was definitely some of my recent highlights. I don't think I played any games yesterday. But yeah, you were just talking about, what was the game that you got to play?
Oh, I can tell you. Basically, everything that you see behind me, up to the letter S. So we've been playing Horrified, Aliens, Takanoko, Photosynthesis was a recent discovery.
That's so good. I love it.
Oh, everything we can get our hands on. It's Robo Rally, Quacks, Jaws, you name it. We've been playing it.
Nice. You are truly blessed.
Oh, I'm very, very lucky.
And Ian is listening with one ear, technically working from home. You do you. And hello, Dina. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. So if anyone else has got any recent highlights, then let us know. Otherwise, feel free to ask Paul any of your questionably quick questions. So, as you might know, this is where we get into the silliness, but we'll start off with something relatively simple. Paul, where exactly in the world are you? What time is it?
I'm in Brighton, and it's 10 past 10 of the AM. Brighton in the UK, and it's reasonably pleasant outside. And yes, and that's where I am. That's where I spent a lot of my time this last year.
Brighton, about 50 miles south of London.
It is, yeah.
A bit more south of where I am, which is in Glasgow. It's the exact same time. Now, Dina, because Dina just got an office chair, which sounds very fancy, ask Paul, what are you sitting on today?
Well, I'm sitting on a very comfy chair that we got off a free cycle page on the internet. It's pretty comfortable. I don't know how ergonomically it's sound it is to work from, but it's so far no problems, no complaints.
And
someone's in Hove.
Yeah, just down the road from you.
They're 1 minute behind, or all my clock's wrong. One of the two.
So yeah, another question that we sometimes ask is, would you rather have a duck-sized meeple or a meeple-sized duck?
A meeple-sized duck, I think. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. What was the very last game you played?
The very last game I played was Horrified.
Nice. That's the one by Ravensburger?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the Universal Studios Monster mashup. Really, really good.
Nice.
Really good cooperative game. Yeah, I'd recommend it very highly.
And in Finland, it is 12.10. Got people from the UK, from Germany, from all over the place. Michelle asks, what musical instrument do you wish you could play?
Any of them really. Oh no, accordion. I'd love to play accordion. I borrowed one off my girlfriend almost 10 years ago, and then we lent it to somebody else, so that was a missed opportunity. I learned to play Hungry Like the Wolf by Duran Duran on it, and that was as far as I got, so that's a big regret. But it's tricky because it's such a loud instrument. You know, you have to have really tolerant housemates and neighbours if you want to get away with learning something like that.
Yeah, it's not something where you can mute. I mean, trumpets is almost like the worst thing.
Well, you can plug up the opening with something, like the whole thing of putting a sock in it. That can dampen the sound a bit, but an accordion's just nothing you can do.
So we've got Xate, who asks, what's the sound of your favourite colour?
Oh, a kind of a gentle rustling, because I always think of autumnal brown if I hear that sound. So yeah, that would be the sound of my favourite colour.
So your favourite colour is a kind of reddish, yellowish?
Exactly that, yeah. An autumnal hue, that kind of, that's somewhere between orange and yellow.
How many bananas make a bunch?
I'd say 5. Because I was thinking of a bunch of 5s. The whole fist thing. That I think if I hear bunch, I say 5.
What is your next game to play?
Oh, well, if it were down to me, it'd be Space Hulk. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to be a popular option. So I think we might go for. Oh no! I tell you what, we're playing Ray Holt at the moment. We're working through the little narrative campaign, which is like an episode of The Archers. Yeah, it's really good. So that'd be the next one, I think.
Sorry, which game? I'm not sure I know this one.
It's on my shelf of the prettiest games I've got. It's a game about gardening in Iceland.
Oh,
Finland, sorry. No, it is Iceland, and it's a lovely, really beautiful game. And there's this really kind of relaxed campaign game in it where you just grow vegetables for tourists. It's lovely. So we're working our way through that one at the moment. So yeah, it's good actually having the games just behind me. I'm glad I stuck myself here now.
That sounds really good. Okay, Dina says they missed that. Let me ask 2 really quick questions. Books or podcasts?
Oh, now, if you'd have asked me about a year ago, books, but my housemate has been introducing me to a lot of podcasts, mainly horror, and I do listen to a lot of board game podcasts, especially when I'm sort of, working on a project. So now I'd say pretty much 50-50. I know there's a bit of a sitting on the fence kind of answer, but I am indulging in roughly equal amounts of both. But if you were to ask me books or comics, then there's no contest.
Well, this is the next question I was going to ask, which was how many pages does a comic need to have before it counts as a graphic novel?
Well, see, I was reading an article on this about how the whole notion of graphic novel is a gentrification of comics, that hipsters need to give it a certain amount of cultural respectability before they can admit to indulging in it. So it's like real ale became craft beer, comic books became graphic novels. So I don't know. I mean, a graphic novel suggests that it's got a spine. So I would say anything of 48 pages upwards. Anything less than that, of course, you can just staple bind it. So it's more like an actual, regular kind of flap open comic. So that would be that would be my opinion.
I mean, do you think that once you've got 48 pages, you are a book? Do you think it's a comic book?
I think so. You're testing any decent stapler with more than 48 pages. So I would say do the decent thing and give it a spine.
So if I write a small book, if it's 47, well, you can't have 47 pages. I mean, it needs to be a multiple of 4. So if it's 44 pages, it's like, Bez, you've not quite written a book. But once it's 48 pages, it's like, Bez, you've written a book.
Cram in a couple of blanks and a few shout outs on a couple of pages, and you got your 48 then.
Okay. Nicholas says that they thought of graphic novels as longer and containing a story rather than shorter serialized stories.
I'd go with that, actually.
But then you'd have something, Love and Rockets.
Well, Love and Rockets,
because that's a serial, but each one comes in a book.
And each one is kind of self-contained to an extent. I mean, I would think like a comic, I tend to think of like a sketch show where you've got something that's made up of lots of shorter stories. Whereas a graphic novel or a series of graphic novels, I would say, longer contained stories. I would go with with Nicholas on that one. But like I say, it's a relatively new rebranding of comics, the whole graphic novel. I think it's because adults like to read comics, but they don't want to say they read comics, so they give them a more respectable name. That's what I do anyway.
So this is interesting. So Nicholas, I mean, if we use this analogy, that would suggest that Usagi Yojimbo is not a graphic novel, or any long-running thing is no longer a graphic novel. Which
it's quite a sort of blurred distinction, I think. I mean, for me, I mean, I read a lot of Judge Dredd, which is a series, contained in 2000 AD. So it's a serialized story, but they collect self-contained stories into paperback books, but they're of course part of a longer narrative anyway. So what do they count? I don't know. I mean, I just call them comics, really. I'm not ashamed.
And yeah, it's all over the shop. Yeah, we've got series of movies. Yep. So there we go. People saying that at the same time. Someone asked for another quick look at Reykholt, and there's a picture from Board Game Geek. So there you go. That's what we were talking about from. And look at that lettering, how it says Uwe Rosenberg, like just in nice little lettering. I like that lettering.
Every part of the game is very beautiful. It comes with all these little wooden vegetables and salad goods that you put in these little baskets. Yeah, it's a very pleasing game.
When you see a cover like this, though, I mean, I understand the reason for it, but isn't that publisher logo in the bottom right just the tiniest bit
incongruous?
Garish?
Yeah, it jumps right out. It's the first thing you see, isn't it? It is unfortunate. But things, until you said that, I hadn't noticed. Now it's all I'm going to see whenever I look at that game.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, so fine.
What was the last book you read?
Oh, the last book I read, I finished yesterday. It's called The Sacrifice. It's part of a zombie series called, the overall story is called The Enemy by Charlie Higson. It's really, really good. Anyone over the age of 14 becomes infected with this zombie virus, so it's down to the kids to save the day.
Wow,
it's good.
It's kind of like the Goonies style thing.
Yeah, the apocalyptic Goonies. I mean, it's supposed to be teen fiction, but I mean, it's really gory. I don't know if I would have been allowed to read anything like that when I was a teenager, but no, it's really good. So yeah, that's my step from comics to teen fiction. I hope to read a proper adult book one day. Shut my mum up.
Oh, you're clearly really into the zombies with your Zombie N1 game, and we'll get into that later. But what's the last podcast you listened to then?
Oh, the last podcast was a series called it was a ghosty series, and I can't remember. Oh, The Harrowing, that's it. Yeah, very, very good, really creepy. Filmed in sort of full 360 surround sound. So if you wear it with headphones, it's really good, really effective.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd recommend that.
And Nicholas says, I never thought about adults being ashamed of reading comics. I accepted the term graphic novel as an indicator of scope, size, and production quality.
Yeah, Nicholas, I think you're giving me food for thought on this topic, because I would agree with that. I think it's more I feel like I should finish. I'll give you an example. My sister has 3 children who are between 5 and 10 years old, and all they read is comics. And their dad had words with them about this and said, look, you shouldn't just read comic books, like ask Paul. And I said, well, actually, I'm probably the worst person you should be looking for guidance on this for. So I think there's a feeling that adults shouldn't read just comics, maybe other stuff as well, which I'd like to have started. Zombie books.
I mean, we are going to read other stuff anyway. Like as we read social media, we read that. As we read, a magazine, maybe physical media is something that people might engage in a little bit less, because we've got so many electronic mediums to compete with, whether it's one-on-one communication. People are probably writing more than ever before, you could argue.
Oh yeah, they are definitely. Yeah, across all sorts of platforms. So I suppose the thing about comics and the sort of like the assumed readership, I think it's because to a lot of people still comics are just something you read at the back of a newspaper. It's that kind of thing. Yeah, no, definitely. As long as you read, yeah, absolutely, I'll go with that.
Now, talking about art, which, yeah, some people were agreeing with it. But would you say art or rules? Which one is more important for you in a game?
Oh well, I would say the writing of the rules is very important. I think average artwork can rescue, a game that's very, very pretty. If the rules aren't very well explained or they're too clunky or cumbersome, that can kill the game stone dead. Whereas if you've got a game which doesn't look great, but it plays brilliant and the rules are sort of intuitive and clearly explained, I think that way round, you're much more likely to get a decent experience out of it. I mean, I suppose with board games, because often the first thing you see is the box, then it's the art that grabs. But yeah, the disappointment then would come from a game not being, much fun in the rules department.
It's definite. I mean, I know people say, oh, you need both. And for selling and for marketing, I would say the arts is more important, I've come to realize.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
Towards that initial purchase. But I think that for my sustained enjoyment, if I had to pick just one, I would go with the rules, because that's going to be the thing that keeps bringing you together. But, I accept that it is kind of a false dichotomy.
Well, I think there's a point in the middle which is important as well, which is design, where you've got the quality of the art meets the quality of the layout. So things like icons and clear, really nice detailed art can sometimes clutter things like cards and components and so on. So I think there's that sort of intersection in the middle where the design and the art have to work well together. But I mean, I do agree. I mean, certainly when you do stalls of conventions and things, what brings somebody over to your table is how nice it looks, and that part of that is what you're selling on it. So I do agree that the art is a big first buy.
Now, would you prefer a meeple or a plastic figurine?
Oh, what, a wooden meeple, you mean? I'd go with a wooden meeple. Yeah, definitely. Wood feels a lot nicer, and of course, environmentally, it's much more sound. So,
do you value linen finish cards?
To a degree. I used to like them. They're a bit of a bugger to shuffle though, and they don't seem to last quite as well for me.
Really, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know why that finish should degrade it. That's all.
Maybe it's because I think linen finished cards were they seemed like a real thing quite a few years ago, so it could be that the games I play with linen cards tend to be quite old. I don't know, but I mean, I like the feel, and I like.
Maybe you ended up playing with them a lot more.
Yeah. Well, maybe the better cards, the better games have linen cards, so they get more table time. Yeah, that.
So
I'm fairly easy.
So final question I'll ask is: tell us a few of your favourite games.
Oh, okay. Well, Horrified is a new recent addition. Space Hulk. I'll always have a soft spot for Talisman. I know it hasn't aged well, but that's where it started for me. Wingspan, of course, is a big favourite. Takanoko, Warlock of Firetop Mountain, Jaws. I'm enjoying that a lot at the moment. It does change it. I mean, I think favourite game. It depends on. I mean, it's academic at the moment, of course, but it depends on who you've got over for a game. I mean, some games work better with different groups of people. Like, I've got some friends who would make a great Codenames team, but wouldn't necessarily want to play something like Wingspan or Space Hulk. So, yeah.
So that's the end of the questionably quick questions. If anyone else has anything that they feel, okay, I really need to ask Paul, you can chuck in some of your comments, questions, whatever, but let's move on to the brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant?
Well, it's cheating a bit because it's not actually my brilliant thing. It belongs to my girlfriend. Hang on, let's get that in shot. My godmother painted her this violin. Isn't it beautiful?
That is gorgeous.
It's not for playing. She does play violin, but not this one. She hasn't strung it. This one is purely decorative, but it's a real work of art. She painted that by hand. So that's the most brilliant thing I could lay my hands on. So there it is. Like I say, not mine. So I feel like I'm maybe cheating a little bit, but there it is. I haven't got anything more brilliant than that. So
that is lovely, and thank you for sharing it with us. And hello, Hal. Welcome to the chat. And yeah, thank you for. So yeah, we've got lots of respect for your brilliant thing today. And I think if we kind
I should have said it was mine.
Nah. It's all good. I think that this is another brilliant thing. If we want to kind of extrapolate from this brilliant thing and look at the wider picture, I know not everyone has a decorated violin in their house.
Well,
I
no,
mean, I don't.
exactly. I mean, we didn't up until fairly recently.
But, you know, it's also the other brilliant things that I could talk about are, you know, appreciating things that other people have done, appreciating the work done by others, and also taking something and customizing it. Those things are all brilliant things in their own
Well,
right.
of course
If you know
they
what I mean.
are. And it was such a lovely, thoughtful gift because my girlfriend's played violin since she was 7 or 8 years old. So it was just a nicely crafted, very thoughtful, personalised gift. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be got from that.
And thank you very much for all the comments. It's lovely
it's lovely.
So as we move, here's where, like last year, I would normally say we're going to move to the main topic. But this year I've started doing a lot more of, okay, we'll chat about your life. That is the main topic. Whatever Paul likes, whatever are some of Paul's favorite things, that is the main topic. Who is Paul? Let's work out. And so, frankly, is there any main topic? I don't even know. But feel free to comment, ask questions, follow all that stuff. But yeah, let's get on with it. So, Paul, what was your first memory?
Oh, well, I don't know if I train my brain to convince me that this is my first memory. My first memory was watching Doctor Who when I was 5 years old. That's the first thing I remember. And I've been able to date it because it was a repeat of a John Pertwee story. And so I managed to get that date to when I was, 4.5 years old. I don't recall anything prior to that as far as I can tell. So, yeah, Doctor Who, that started my conscious life off.
Was that a big part of your upbringing then? Sci-fi, zombies, fantasy?
Doctor Who was that was a big part of my upbringing. If I watch a Doctor Who story from any point from the 80s, I can remember more or less exactly where I was when I watched it, or where I was when I was thinking about it, or something. Each story has a particular memory, so it was a real sort of running kind of theme through my upbringing. And I was a gamer when gamers tended to get the crap kicked out of them in playtime. So being like a gingerhead asthmatic who liked role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons, Doctor Who was a good reminder that you could be different and still be a hero. So that was my take-home message from growing up with Doctor Who. So, and now now it's back and doing the same for kids of this generation. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's lovely. Were you a big proponent of the reboots? Have you been watching all the new episodes?
Oh yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I mean, the thing that really sort of because obviously you have the nostalgia for what you grow up with, and you watch it through different eyes now, but seeing it with my niece and my two nephews, my niece particularly is just enchanted by it. And up until Jodie Whittaker was the Doctor, she always wanted to be the companion, but now she wants to be the Doctor, and that's just amazing. That's an amazing kind of transformation in someone's kind of what they now see as being possible for themselves. And I think it's still got that very sort of powerful kind of message that you can sort of be who you want to be. I think that's a good thing to have in kids' lives.
So going from Doctor Who, and I would actually like to explore this sense of representation in your own mediums, because do you ever look back at your old comics and think, you know what, there's lots of dudes here?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's for quite a while my comic strips were so primitively drawn that there was quite a large level of androgyny in the characters anyway. But yeah, there's things that I go back at now, and it's that thing where it's everywhere. And I think the first place to sort of confront it is in the stuff you do yourself. And if I were to do some of the comics that I did, I mean, I haven't drawn a comic for about 10 years now, but if I was to redraw them or do new ones now, that would be something that I would want to think about a lot, because I think it's something that just lazily just wasn't on the radar for people so much. And I think so I think that will be something I would like to look at. It's interesting how representation has kind of changed in board gaming as well over the years. I mean, that seems to be something that now the idea of having like playable characters, say character cast, for instance, a male one side, a female the other, you know, that seems obvious now, whereas a few years ago it doesn't even seem to get thought about. You know, the number of rule books that still use male pronouns throughout, you know, that still surprises me. But yeah, so long way to go, but steps seem to be being made, which is something.
And just to thank you to Nicholas and Shitty Popu for staying and lurking, even if you're not actively chatting. I really appreciate you listening. Now, I want to go back to your childhood. So what other stories were you engaged by? Were you someone who was quite often in their own mind, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I used to write a lot of stories when I was young, a lot of sci-fi. But of course, then I discovered fighting fantasy and game books, and that was me. That was and I've still got a whole box upstairs of these mostly unfinished adventure books that I was writing when I was little. And actually, I think I was doing it for quite a while. My handwriting changed a lot throughout this box that I've got, so I think I was at it for quite some time. So that's probably that was where sort of fiction and gaming kind of started to combine for me. But yeah, so, and I used to like post-apocalyptic stories. I mean, that was all down to an English teacher that made us watch Threads when I was at school, and then I started getting into the real sort of end of the world sort of scenario kind of fiction. So that was another. It was quite doomy, really, but you know, the 80s were quite doomy, so you know, it fit the times.
How was your Pop, who says fighting fantasy was read at my school by my favorite teacher, helped introduce the class to RPG mechanics. We'd draw maps and paths collectively.
That's lovely, because at our school they were banned because the head teacher believed that that BBC program about how they were giving children special powers such as levitation and demon worship.
What?
Yeah, there was a BBC. You can see it on YouTube. Actually, it was this kind of moral outrage about fighting fantasy books, and one of the mums that was interviewed said it had given her son the power of levitation. So
amazing! I want the power of levitation.
I think they probably
sold. How's that
so
a bad thing? That's what I'm wondering. Exactly. How is having the power of levitation a bad thing?
Especially when you're a child, you can't reach anything, you know, so it's really useful. So I think they probably sold a lot of books off the back of that claim. But yeah, like I say, our head teacher believed that, and yeah, they were banned from our school, which was you know,
no levitating children at my school.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so tame, isn't it? Like a book about goblins and warlocks, and you have to read it behind the bike sheds in case you get told off. So yeah.
Yeah, if only. And,
yeah, absolutely. That's the only reason I read them.
Hello, Scott, whose first Doctor Who memory was The Hand of Fear, broadcast in 1976.
Oh yeah, Liz Sladen leaving. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, that was just before I was watching it. I came in about 3 years later. Peter Davison, that was my Doctor.
So, what would you say childhood was like? What were your relationships like? I mean, in terms of friendships and how was your school time?
Well, it was variable. Like I say, being a geek in that period of time didn't have the same kind of cachet as it does now. You know, we were more akin to nerds, I suppose. So I had a small but select group of friends. You know, we were into similar things. But yeah, we weren't particularly mainstream in what we like to do. So, but it's fine. You know, it's stood me in good stead. So you know, and I bet they haven't got 800 unsold board games in their loft. I won that one.
Oh my god, people are just sharing Doctor Who stories. I feel like, you know, I've got someone who helps me out for about 2 hours every week, Jason Hodgson, and Jason Hodgson is like one of the biggest Doctor Who fans. So it feels like we should just have a show all about Doctor Who.
I'll be out for that.
I didn't see a single Doctor Who until I moved to the UK 10 years ago. My first Doctor was the first Doctor. Wow, that is
1963.
Actually, you know what? I started off with that, although it was some time after it. But I'd heard of Doctor Who. I hadn't really watched any Doctor Who. I might have seen like the starts. I knew this noise, but so I was like, oh, I'm interested to check out Doctor Who. This was back in the time of Love Film when they actually sent you DVDs through the post, and then I got the original the DVDs with the first series to just. I thought I'll start off at the starts, and then I watched maybe got up to the 8th episode, something else, you know what, this is a bit slow and it's not that exciting, and maybe I didn't stick with it. And since then, I've watched some more of the more recent ones, and for sure, there's a lot of great stuff there, but I don't know, the old stuff, it's kind of dated, I feel.
Oh yes, it has. It's dated terribly. But even the Christopher Eccleston and the early David Tennant ones, I mean, they've dated surprisingly. I watched them again not that long ago. It just hadn't realised how much difference 15 years of TV and that makes. It's a long time, really. But yeah, I mean, the old ones, I think you have to have been there to really sort of be able to forgive some of the the rougher edges.
Oh. Yeah, I think we need to have this. Let's organize a Doctor Who. I think it would be fun to kind of just start chatting about particular things and be like, yeah, who likes Doctor Who? Come on to a show and let's chat about Doctor Who. And I know I'll be the voice of ignorance. You know what? I'll be the voice of ignorance in that one. Relative ignorance. But yeah, do you think that this is the biggest series for you, like in terms of how it's shaped you, would you say, or is there a bigger one?
Yeah, because the take-home messages I had when I was growing up was it was okay to be different and it was okay to be peaceful, and you could be, exactly. The things we need, people like me needed that at the time, and you could solve something without hurting anyone. That they were the sort of things that I got from it, and of course it was exciting and and funny and everything. So yeah, it was an important series for me, kind of growing up. But it's I think it's that thing as well where those people are saying that their Doctor. I think you can often kind of have a stab at someone's age by who their favourite Doctor is, because it's always the one you grew up with. So yeah, that.
Oh, so let's move on to other things that you talked about. So you know what? Let's start off. Let me just ask, what are some of your favourite things that are not Doctor Who?
Well, obviously board gaming, music, both playing and attending music. I've been involved in music. In fact, that's where I know Michelle is from a festival we go to each year. So I've been, music is something that I've been into for about as long as gaming, really. Play music, cycling I love, having adventures, exploring, which I've been doing a lot of this last year, sort of when able. They're things that I enjoy. Having a dog is amazing. Our dog is one of my favorite things.
I think that wee animal companion sharing parts of your life with you.
Oh, of course, and also being forced to explore. One of the few things that we could do at the beginning of lockdown was dog walking, so we did lots of it. Our poor dog was knackered, but I think she enjoyed it. And of course, we're just sort of discovering I was discovering a place I'd lived in all my life and still seeing new things. So that was so those are the things I enjoy most.
And I'm not familiar with the Cat's Back, but I'm assuming, do you know what Stina's asking about?
The Cat's Back, is that the flight of steps that runs up to Wakefield Road from Roundhill Crescent? Because I know that as the Cat something. It's this little twitten, the legendary Field of Avalon. No, I haven't. Unless I know it's something else. I probably know it was like, I know, Woodhurst Close or something. But yeah, I do know. I know Cat's Back. Yeah, that's for sure.
Apparently, there you go. You're in the know.
Oh yes, my friend lives next door to it, and there's a weird acoustic effect. If you clap your hands at the top, it makes the most amazing sound. So yeah, the next time you're up there, do that. Clap your hands at the top at night, preferably when it's quiet.
That might be a bit difficult for people who are, nowhere near Brighton right now.
That's for most people, yeah.
And let's talk about comics.
All right, I'm always up for that.
So, how did you fall in love with comics? What was the first comic you ever read? What's your favorite comics?
Well, I was introduced to comics through the comics page of the Today newspaper, which is long defunct. Dilbert and the Perishers were the first things I remember reading. Although I think the Perishers, it must have been the Daily Mirror or something that I saw that. That would have been my nan. So they were the first comics I read. The first comic I really fell in love with was Calvin and Hobbes, which came a couple of years later. Which is just wonderful, lovely story about friendship and imagination. You can't really beat it. So Calvin and Hobbes was the that was my first real kind of like comics love. Since then, it's anything Mouse, From Hell, Watchmen, Preacher, Constantine. But recently I've been enjoying a lot more indie comics. I've been getting into a lot of those a lot more. I always enjoy those most, but it sometimes takes a bit more work digging them out. But fortunately, our local Waterstones, and we got a really good comic shop in Brighton as well, where the indie stuff is like first and foremost. So that it's been a lot easier to find that stuff recently.
You're talking about a lot of the things that I love. I mean, I could reach up, I'm not going to because there's a book balancing on top of the book, but I could bring down Mouse and I could stand up and then grab Calvin and Hobbes. I've only got 2 of them. I used to have basically all of them, but then I did do a big clear out and I got rid of most of them except for 2, which is the Sunday Pages one, if you know that one, where it's got the retrospective.
Yes,
although
that's right.
they say officially it's not a retrospective, it's a looking back, because Bill Watterson didn't want to call it a retrospective. And then, it's a magical world.
Yes, I know the one. Oh, that's got the really poignant last strip, isn't it, when they're sledging off into the distance for the last time.
You know what? I'm going to.
Oh, you can show it. Yeah.
Hopefully, without knocking down any. Knock down a few things, but all sorts of
sounds. It's the saddest strip. I mean, it's lovely, but it's like they're just going off into the distance and leaving you for the last time. It's it always gets me, that one.
Such amazing line work, and
beautiful. I mean, gosh, everyone aspires to be, half as good as Bill Watterson.
I love the sparing nature of the colors here. How so much of it is left entirely white.
Yeah, and it just, you know exactly what it is. It's marvelous. I mean, and the thing I like, what I got to respect about Will Watterson most was his refusal to merchandise the strip, which must have taken an incredible act of willpower, really, to sort of sustain those kind of market pressures, and also to turn down all that money as well. I mean, it's very, very commendable.
Oh yeah, and a shout out to the transmogrification machine. Like all those cardboard boxes, and Watterson at it says, there are some bits that seem old hats now, but so you did your own comics, and just to show this is not your comic, it's just something that you uploaded to Board Game Geek, and I'm going to show a lot of the pictures that you happen to chuck up there. And you started developing your own comics. What inspired you to say, hey, I love this medium, I want to create it?
Well, growing up, I always, like most kids who are into comics, I always sort of just drew comic strips and that. But when I got into, the music sort of community that I'm most part of is the punk scene. And of course, you've got lots of fanzines and sort of small press and self-published stuff. And a lot of that stuff had comic strips in it. And, of course, they're kind of quite straightforward, a bit rough around the edges and so on. And so I thought, well, I could do that. I mean, I can draw at least as good as some of this stuff. So I thought I'd give it a go. I just started drawing comics, selling them at gigs, and then getting into comic fairs and so on. And it kind of just went on from there. I did it for about maybe 12 years in total. Did about sort of 15 books or so, I guess. But BN1 was the last strip I did. And then that kind of neatly segued into board games, because BN1 was the first board game I did, and it used the same artwork style.
Just doing a bit of a stretch because my finger reminds me to do a stretch and raise the legs, and
this could be a regular part of the show. I mean, everyone could benefit from stretching.
Make sure that you're all good, and so I've got this. Why comics? Why comics? Why not? books or music or anything
Well,
else? Why comics?
there's a certain sort of story you can tell with comics. I think Alan Moore sums this up best with something like The Watchmen, for instance. You couldn't, I mean, I know they did a film, but you can't tell that story in any other format. It has to be in a comic. You got something which is kind of like a series of snapshots of a storyboard. So what you're doing, you're picking out frames of animation really with a comic that you think are important, and relaying the story to the reader through those snapshots. And like I say, you can suggest time passing with a couple of silent panels. You can show what people are thinking, which you can't do easily in other formats. A couple of little cloud bubbles above someone's head. Everybody knows that that's a thought rather than something's being said out loud. So you can use all these kind of age-old mechanisms of comics to tell a story in a particular way. And it's funny because it's like if you say to somebody, how do you know that cloud above somebody's head in a comic indicates that they're thinking rather than speaking? And nobody knows where this stuff comes from. It's just so kind of embedded in that medium that it's a really handy way to be able to sort of demonstrate what sort of story you're trying to get across. Like I say, comics do some things that other medium can't, in my opinion. So that's what sort of attracted me to it.
That makes sense. Scott says that you met at FFF3. Is that Fighting Fantasy Fest 3?
It is, yes, up in London. That was, gosh, a couple of years. It's funny, actually. I know what you mean, Scott. It was only a couple of years ago, really, but anything pre-COVID seems like a lifetime ago. Yes, and I recognise you from your picture. It's only a little thumbnail, but yes. Yeah, we had a chat at the stand, as I recall. Yeah, that was lovely. That was I mean, if I'd have ever known as a child that I would get to stand in the same room as Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone. Oh, yeah, that was a good day.
Now you moved to games and Paupers Ladder and board games, and you brought BN1 over. And can you talk about that transition?
Well, BN1, I think it was just like one of those chats in a pub where we were talking about the quirks and sort of weirdness of Brighton, and that it would make a good game, just exploring for these kind of things. And I kind of took the idea home with me and thought, well, I've got a comic strip already about Brighton, which has got a style of artwork that I've been using for 10 years. So it's got a certain amount of at least local recognition. So I started to play around with the idea of a game. And at the time, my favorite game that informed me in a lot of those early decisions was Talisman. So I wanted to make a game that was kind of like a dungeon crawler, but set in the streets of Brighton instead. So you've shop for equipment, you picked up cards that kind of works the same way as spells. So it was a kind of transposition of that. And really, it kind of coincided with me kind of losing interest in doing comics. And I've always thought, so long as I'm doing something, I'm happy. And yeah, I did BN1, enjoyed the whole process much more than I thought was possible. And yeah, kind of haven't looked back really. Just kept on with that for the last 8 years or so. I mean, like everyone working in any sort of creative field at the moment, or indeed any field, the last year has kind of really sort of impacted on it. But up until that point, yeah, going brilliantly. I mean, albeit on a small scale. Oh yeah, that was a Christmas print and play expansion. It's kind of like going through an old photo album.
I'm also quite amused. I'm not going to bring up everything else, but
there's so much
Alex, because there's a chat command in Twitch where people can say that Aquasulis is awesome, and so Alex, also known as Aquasulis, has just done the shouts out to Xate, which I find just so lovely, and there's some lovely chats going on. So yeah, shouts out to my amazing moderator Xate, and yeah. We are all looking forward to Fighting Fantasy Fest 4 in 2022 for the 40th anniversary.
Yeah, count me in for that.
Yeah. So, what? You haven't done any game books, though?
Oh, I did one. That's how I got to do.
Oh yeah. Shoot, you did.
Yeah, it was
I'm
to
sorry.
begin with. Oh no, that's quite. Oh, honestly, the number of shows you do, it's amazing. You remember half the stuff you do. Um, yeah, I did a book which went along with the Paupers Ladder kind of pre-order thing, and I messaged the Jonathan Green who runs the fest, and I just said, look, I know it's a bit tenuous. I've got one book, and he said, no, come along. I'm really glad I did. So that was how I got into it was called The Curse of Saltash Mine, and it was just a short run kind of self-published adventure game book. And then I discovered what a cottage industry is at the moment. So many people are producing and writing game books. I don't know if it's partly because of people being sort of stuck for games at the moment, that they're kind of solo forms of solo gaming have kind of come to the fore again, but they're really popular at the moment.
Have you played Pretty Little Mistakes?
No, I haven't.
Let me grab it. If you can, let me take off that
Pretty Little Mistakes. Let me write that down.
It's not suitable for children.
Okay, I won't read it with the kids then.
It's got very adult themes. I'm not sponsored by this, but I just think the author's done an amazing job. It branches and it never collapses, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So you're going to end up reading maybe 8 sections. Each section is going to be at least 1 page. These sections are long. For example, if one of the bits that I was on, section 150 is basically 2 pages and that much.
Oh, wow.
So this is like you're going to go through, make maybe 5 choices, and you will have a short story. It's more of a short story generator, you could argue, than a game book. But it's really interesting because it's so different to anything else I've seen out there. It says on the back,
a game book as well. Pretty Little Mistakes. I'm writing that
over 150 possible endings.
Amazing.
And it does have very adult themes of slight content warning. There are drugs and there is some abuse going on, and there's if you're of a nervous disposition, you might not want to read it, and it is a very human story, if you know what I mean. There are some part. I would also say it's kind of from a Judeo-Christian point of view, somewhat, because you always end up. It's from the time you leave school to the time you die, basically.
Oh wow! Okay, that sounds brilliant. Pretty Little Mistakes. I've written on my hand, so I'm going to check that out. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I was just thinking, should have you back, talk about game books and nothing else. But,
oh yeah, there's so much. To be honest, there's other people that are much better versed in it than I am. I mean, I feel like I'm really sort of dipping my toes in it again at the moment because there's just so much great stuff coming out. In fact, there was did you see that book called oh, I forgot what it's called. Alba, yes, the one. Yeah, the one.
Yeah, I had Harley on the show.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Yeah, I backed that one. It looks fantastic. Oh, yeah. Yes, sorry. I just saw a question pop up. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. I did run the Monday night board games at Dice Saloon. Yeah, for a little while, and before that, we had board game making clubs with children during the summer holidays, which was really fun as well. But yeah, we did the Monday nights, but that was just before lockdown. I think we managed to get 3 in, and the third one was, it hadn't really been worth opening that night, really. But yeah, that was just before this started. So hopefully, if the Dice Saloon survives, we'll carry on with that afterwards. So yeah, Monday nights.
So let's talk about, you've always, correct me if I'm wrong, have you always chosen to publish your own stuff and keep full creative control?
Yeah, I have. I mean, that goes for everything. Like that was the same with the comics, and I'm in a band, and we do the same with our albums as well. I just, I mean, I do, like we were chatting before the show started, all the kind of the legwork you have to do afterwards is kind of, there's a lot of it. There's that Terry Pratchett phrase where when you finish a creative endeavor that you do yourself, you become an employee of your own former self, because then you have to do all the, everything else. But no, I kind of wouldn't have it any other way, really. I mean, I'm sounding like a bit of a stuck record on the subject, but Paupers Ladder came out maybe 3 or 4 months before COVID hit. Managed to get Spiel and then Aircon, which we were both at, weren't we? I mean, that was 2 days before they announced the lockdown. So my idea with Paupers Ladder was to do it myself. I didn't do Kickstarter with it, and then just trudge around the conventions, everything from Spiel right down to Christmas fairs at the local community hall or something, which I'd recommend to anyone who sells board games. They're good places to sell at. And then of course, it kind of that whole plan kind of got nipped in the bud a bit, but yeah, I've always been into self-publishing, and I think it's so much easier now to do that than it used to be. That you can broadcast something to an audience like worldwide, instantaneously. I mean, I know it's no big deal, but I think I'm part of the generation that bridged that possibility. So I still kind of remember before that being, when it was like, posting mail outs, that kind of thing, and very sort of advertising in specialist magazines and stuff. Whereas now scope's fantastic. And I think it's taken a bit of the sway out of the publisher's side of things. It's kind of balanced things a little more, I think.
Why not just give it to someone else and let them do the difficult work? And although I'm aware myself plenty of reasons why you might not want to do that, but why do you not give it to a publisher? Why do you not go around pitching it to a publisher? And
well, I've always, because I've always self-published, I kind of feel that that's where I've kind of learned to do things afterwards, like I say, sort of doing the convention circuits and things like that, and sort of selling face to face, which I really enjoy. I feel that I'm unskilled in pitching to publishers completely because I've never done it. But on the other hand, there have been times when I've lugged like several hundred board games from one warehouse to another just because it's £10 cheaper a month. There have been times when I've sort of thought there's got to be an easier way to do this, where that sort of stuff does become someone else's responsibility. So who knows? Maybe, I mean, I'm going to keep on with Paupers Ladder in the form of expansions and add-ons and so on, at least for the next couple of years. If I do another sort of full-fledged game, then I might sort of go down that route. It would be at least nice to work with one other person. I was chatting to my friend who did Russ Law, who did the Bag of Dungeon games recently, and he was talking about how they got a team. It's only 4 people, but I think I'd love a team. I'd love 3 other people to sort of bat stuff around.
Only 4 people. I mean, 4 people is pretty big for the way that
it is. Yeah, actually, it is. I mean, to me, that sounds like a massive gathering. But yeah, I mean, just somebody, even if it's somebody else like who was handling like artwork or design, and I've gone very dark. That's it. So yeah, I think I would like to at least collaborate for the next game, even if it's with an artist. But yeah, maybe I should kind of pull my head out of the sand a bit and sort of go down the publishing route, because I've sold 500 of Paupers Ladders, which I know isn't very many. Like I say, the plan was scattered. I mean, I got COVID not long after. I was an early adopter, really, but and I had it for about 11 months. So it's all my plans for stuff that I was working on last year just didn't happen, really. So I would like to sort of pick up from where I left off, but yeah, we'll see for the next game. If there is a next game, then who knows? Brexit isn't making the notion of producing anything at the moment particularly appealing. So if it was someone else's responsibility to deal with all that stuff as well, I certainly wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's very difficult with all of this, and it is absolutely a small world with people having all of these missed connections. And of course, we were both at Terracon, and then you look back at it, and I never realized that was going to be such, in retrospect, a landmark event, because that was the last convention in the UK for a long time.
And it was the biggest convention in the UK that year because it was the only one that really went ahead. But it was so strange. I mean, because I was staying with a friend in Harrogate. Who lived just down the road. And I was walking home each evening, and like just reading the news about how they were turning planes back in midair, and all these hospital admissions, and yet there were people at the convention. I mean, people washing their hands and elbow bumping each other, but it by and large felt fairly normal, didn't it? And so there was this real disconnect with what I was reading, what I was seeing at Aircon and in Harrogate, people in pubs and restaurants. And then like you say, then it was just, that was it. We're a year on. This year as Aircon isn't happening. The Gaming Expo, who knows? Yeah, I certainly, this time last year, I never thought we'd be talking about cancelled conventions this year as well. But yeah, I miss it. I mean, I imagine you do as well, Bez. I mean, it's kind of like sort of natural habitat, isn't it, for when you're sort of selling your own your own creations like that.
Yeah, and yeah, Ian, good times. I mean, relatively, even though it was all elbow bumping, and that was, I went and I didn't. For me, it was such a okay. Let's talk about COVID for like a few minutes, and it was back then such a, for me at least, distant prospects. I wasn't aware that it was a real thing to some degree.
No,
and
absolutely.
I went, and to my, like, afterwards, I know one of my housemates is still resentful of me for having gone to Aircon, and which kind of like, well, anyway, but I feel like there's a bit of resentment there. When I was going, it was, what, and I talked to Mark afterwards for my podcast. Yeah, for my podcast, I want to say, which I stopped fairly soon afterwards, where Mark was like, yeah, I don't know if we should have ran it, but frankly, we had to. Otherwise, the amount of money we would have lost, and we would have had to officially fold the company to declare bankruptcy on Aircon as a separate entity. It's not like Mark makes any money from it, but
no, well, none of us do we?
But going there, it was actually when I was at Aircon on the Friday or the Saturday, and then Festival was cancelled. And then that was the time when I realized, wow, this is actually a real thing. It's affecting us. And then, everyone was, and before we went, I remember a friend of mine, I'm not going to name names, saying, hey, if people are going to Aircon, are people going to be using hand sanitizer? I've heard about this new thing coming out, which is called COVID. And like, sorry, that sounds like it's a new game coming out. Sorry, that sounds really
yeah.
But
that was the thing, wasn't it? We weren't encouraged to take it seriously at the time. I mean, we had a government who were doing anything but taking it seriously. And like you say, I mean, Mark wouldn't have got any help at all from the government if he'd have cancelled Aircon at that point. There would have been, like you say, it would have probably meant the end of it. But there was this funny feeling all weekend. I just couldn't correlate what I was reading with what I was seeing. I mean, I was sort of bumping elbows with people and sort of making jokes about hand sanitizer as though it was a matter of levity still. But and then 2 weeks later, that conference centre was a Nightingale hospital. I mean, that rammed it home.
Yeah. And yeah, I remember someone actually made a game, at Aircon. It wasn't like a game that they were even trying to make profits off. It wasn't one of these, I'm going to profit off this terrible new disease. It was a case of, hey, I've got this thing, and then you get, it was something like, okay, you lose life points every time you touch your face. You gain a life point every time you wash your hands. You lose a life points if you do any of these things, and you've got to try and see if you can make it through the day. And the idea of it was like a little postcard game or something that had been printed on, just one little bit of paper. And the idea was to kind of ram it home. And it was like, wow,
well, I think it's a good idea. I mean, that's talking to people there in the language.
We played the game together with this person. And then this person was, okay, before we play this game, please use hand sanitizer. Even if you've washed your hands, I want to make sure you've used hand sanitizer. And like that really rammed it home, and it was like the whole thing kind of avoiding hand contacts with anyone. I don't think I shook hands with anyone. I might have given a high five, I'm going to be honest, to maybe 3 or 4 people who I was working with at my stand, and I am glad I went, don't get me wrong. And
me too. No,
if UK Games Expo, even if it is just 1,000 people, I would go there. I would take every precaution that I can, and I'm going to trust Tony and Richard, and ask Richard to come back on the show like at some points in a month or so to talk about it a wee bit, because I think we can trust Richard as a doctor. And hello, Elaine. Elaine forgot to take soap to Aircon. No problem, I thought. I'll just nip to Boots and get some. They had absolutely no soap. No wet wipes, no sanitizer, nothing. I ended up buying shampoo, but it made me realize that this might be worse than we first thought.
Yeah. I committed quite a faux pas at aircon. My friend Tam, who I was, we came up together and we were doing adjacent stalls. She'd been making her own hand sanitizer. She'd got all the ingredients online because, like you say, you just couldn't get it anywhere. And we put it on the table. And in making a sweeping gesture to somebody, I knocked it onto the floor. I mean, we could have probably sold that sanitizer for more than anything on our stands. And yeah, there it went all over the floor. Well done, me. But yeah, I know it was. I mean, I'm glad I went. I'm glad you know, got to sort of experience aircon, and it felt safe. You know, it felt like all the precautions were being taken. I mean, there were fewer people there because of it all. So yeah, you know, and as far as I could tell, there didn't seem to be any severe outcomes. I mean, I know on the group page they were sort of like saying, like, you know, if anybody does start showing symptoms, just let us know, and it didn't seem to happen. So yeah.
Sorry, Dina says, I'd taken my child to Norway right before everything happened, and all of a sudden things closed around us, and I ended up catching the last flight out of Norway to Finland.
Jeez.
And both countries closed border. It was on my kid's birthday. The pilot did what he could to cheer the kid up, as it was all so stressful. That sounds really good of the pilot. And
Oh, doesn't it?
I mean, look, I'm not upset because of any individual story. Look, it's, and I'm trying very hard to not swear, but it's, you know, it's bleeping heartbreaking when, you know, everybody's deaf, to have friends who are having parents who are lost, friends who are lost, so many things are lost. And in a sense, you know, this inconvenience of conventions, you know, we have to take it into context.
Oh, absolutely.
That we are dealing with life and death, and we do have to be, thank you, Alex, we do have to be have a lot of togetherness, and it's, but yeah, there's so much, it has, yeah, I don't know what to say.
I mean, the stories that are going to be told from this last year.
Kept it PG. I'm allowed to say bleeping.
Bleeping's okay. You're allowed to bleep.
Yeah, I'm allowed to say bleeping, bleep, bleep, bleep if I want. Tina got home, wasn't allowed to grab groceries, had a friend get milk and bread as they made their way home to quarantine. And yeah, I know at least one friend who I've seen for a distanced walk. When did I see them? I want to say the end of, in the middle, late part of last year, maybe in the summer, let's say, September-ish. And this person had COVID, and they were like, yeah, this is really rough. And yeah, I don't think there's much more to be said about that.
Oh no, I mean, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's yeah, it's the subject of the day all over, isn't it? But yeah,
let's let's go back to some stuff that Paul did. So
there is.
Here's some stuff that you did. There you go. So you're all about going off to these small stalls, I guess, in
definitely.
Brighton.
I mean, I don't know if anyone's listening who does sort of you know, produce their own games, but yeah, absolutely. And these places are brilliant. I mean, I did. I won't name the convention because it wasn't the fault of the convention. It's just there was a lot of stuff there. But I did a Christmas fair at Shoreham Academy, which is a school fairly near mine, and it was just 3 hours after school, and I sold more board games in that 3 hours than I did in a whole weekend at a board game fair. And it's partly because there's no one else there selling board games. Everyone's sort of selling, you know, prints and cards and candles and things. But what you've got, especially around Christmas time, is lots of grandparents, aunts and uncles looking for a present for the children in their family that isn't a screen. And you see board games and they've got that connotation of being wholesome and, you know, something that the whole family can enjoy together, and getting them off, you know, consoles and tablets. Yeah, they love it. Find any sort of small fairs around your kind of local areas, like schools, community Christmas fairs and things. They're well worth doing. And of course, they're always local, so you don't have to shell out for accommodation.
So I don't want to ask exact numbers, but let me ask, did you manage to turn comics and board game creation into your full-time living?
Comics, no. That was that. I mean, it made a little bit, but I had to, I had to work as well and stuff. The BN1 and Zombie N1 it's made some money. Oh, that's rough. That's a prototype, that one. Again, not enough to live on, but they were the sort of thing that sold well at Christmas. Paupers Ladder hasn't broken even. See, I made neither of those, but I would recommend Spawn to Mars. It's very good. God, I do put up any old crap, don't I?
Hey, it's all good.
It's all part of the process, isn't
so
it?
Michelle is asking for a close-up of the big meeples from Paupers Ladder. I'll check that out after we've gone through the Instagram.
I should have brought a copy down with me. Oh, hang on. Would you believe it? I've got one next to me. I'll open it. The meeples are massive. The manufacturer, which is Longpack, they suggested meeples because they said that they're a good shape. People recognise them and they're kind of nice to pick up. And they said, we can do you quite big meeples. And I said, okay, I'll have some big meeples. How big can you do? And they said 4 centimetres high. And I didn't know what a 4 centimetre high meeple looked like. Now, for scale, here's an onion ring. They're bigger than an onion ring.
Onion rings are all sorts of...
I know, it's not very helpful, is it? Oh, here we go. I can't find anything that's not variable size. I'll tell you what, actually, I'm talking to my...
Are you going to grab a normal meatball?
That's what I'm looking for now.
Baby Duck Meatball says, and Hal actually enjoys your scale of the onion ring scale. Hal's all over this.
Oh, well, no, everyone likes onion rings. So, okay, this is a meeple from Tiny Epic Quest, which I think is industry standard. There you go.
Wow.
They're huge, big wooden meeples. Ooh. So yeah, I had no idea. And then I got them out of the box. I just thought they are ridiculous, but I really like them. So they're nice and chunky. And I'm thinking of getting some done as necklaces as well. So yeah, that'll make some money, even if Paupers Ladder doesn't.
Dina asks, can I get just the meeples? Like, would you send someone, if someone from Finland literally just wanted some of your meeples, would you send some of your meeples?
Some spare ones, because I've got some Paupers Ladder which are open, a couple of missing components which I've replaced. I've got some spare meeples, and they come in. You get white, black, pink, and blue. So yeah, let me know your favourite colour, and I'll send you a couple.
So yeah, you can communicate, and let me actually try and grab the link again so I can share it. And how would people get in touch if they actually want to get some contact?
There's a contact form on the website, but other than that, the Bedsit Games on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, that will find me. And yeah, like I say, here they are. They're massive, and they can be used in other games. I don't mind that.
There you go. We've got lots of questions about these meeples.
Absolutely, quite right too.
Okay, so there was one question that I'm just going to ask you quickly: standees or minis, Paul?
Oh, this is something. Yeah, I've actually given this probably more thought than I should. I like both, but say a game like Stuffed Fables, for instance, which is just beautiful, like the illustrations are lovely and the miniatures are really nice, but unless you go to the trouble of painting them to the same standard as the rest of the artwork, all you've got is blobs of grey plastic on an otherwise lovely.
Agreed. So
for a game like that, I'd go for nicely detailed standees, because you've then got the artwork on your playing pieces as well. But of course, I understand if you're doing like tabletop, like wargaming and stuff, then you need the practicality of like 3D objects, especially when you're like, tracing line of sight and stuff. So yeah, it depends on the situation. But I personally, could be because I'm a bit of an old school gamer, I do prefer standees because unpainted miniatures can really take you out of the atmosphere of a game, I think. So
me as well, it's just kind of get up and go. And
yeah, exactly. And also people can feel embarrassed to paint their miniatures if they don't feel they're that good at it, or they're they feel their eyesight isn't up to the job, and the things like that they're barriers, and not really keen on that. So standees definitely.
Sates wants to know, and I will allow this question: can you fit an onion ring on your finger?
Yes. There you go.
Okay.
Does that help with the scale? There? Oh. I always get asked to do that.
Meatball size onion ring or onion ring size meatball? It's like, which meatball? That's
Neither were bad as far as I'm concerned.
I'm okay. And so apparently you've got to DM on Twitter, so we'll Dino's all over these meeples. There you go.
I'll see it on there in a minute. But of course, if anyone wants to buy a game, they get the meeples for free then as well. So I'd recommend that. You'd have a lot of fun with that.
Okay. Right. So this has taken a couple of turns.
Yes, it really has, isn't it?
Now, I was asking you about the sustainability in terms of the financial sustainability of your acts of creation.
Well, had things gone to plan, I think I'd have been in a better position than I am now. But that that applies to so many of us, isn't it? It is sustainable. I mean, I'm lucky in that the Brighton.
This is amazing, like getting your games into Waterstones.
Oh, it's only one Waterstones. I
understand that, but like I understand that what Waterstones does is like each different branch is allowed to bring in stuff, but even having it in that one Waterstones in Brighton, is that not presumably a good source of sales?
Oh yeah, it is. But the only thing is, Waterstones percentage is higher than anyone else's, so I break even and maybe make a few pence on each one. It's more that people see it in Waterstones and then they think, it gives it a veneer of credibility. And then so when they come to one of these like local Christmas fairs, when they see it out the box, then it helps make their decision for them. So they've seen it in Waterstones, and if they see it out the box, then they'll either get it from me or they'll go back to Waterstones at some point. So it does really help. Like I say, they do take a big cut, but I really do. I mean, I like Waterstones anyway, and I like the fact that they do have this policy of really supporting community, authors and creators and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. And to be honest, as soon as I saw them, I sent my mum a picture and said, "Look, Waterstones." I didn't say it was only one, but that was good enough for her.
No, that's still something to be proud of. I mean,
oh no, definitely, and they've been so supportive, like right from the beginning. But yeah, the sustainability, the two Brighton games prop up Paupers Ladder financially, because just because each Christmas there's a real spike in sales, because it makes a good Christmas present for people, either people who've moved to Brighton or have lived in Brighton, and because we've got this endless flow of students every year, there's always new people in town. So there'll be a fourth edition of BM1 at some point. I think once things are settled, once I know where we are with Brexit, particularly, because there's a lot of big question marks over that at the moment. So, and of course the other thing with BM1, which is it's not in print at the moment, but there's some elements of local history as well. So it's kind of been a good way to kind of like get schools and so on board with it as well.
And Dina suggests that you can definitely see Waterstones in marketing terms is an entry. It's easier to convince another person to take the game in afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it is. I think it was a double-edged sword to a degree, because it's with the Brighton games, there were two shops nearby that didn't think it was worth them taking if Waterstones were carrying it, and they're shops that I would have liked to have supported. But yeah, I think it being in Waterstones helps it sell elsewhere, because people see it in there. They might, especially around Christmas, the queues are like out the door, so they might see it there and then get it from somewhere else, so they don't have to faff around queuing, or they might wait until then they see it, like I say, out the box, where I can explain the game to them, show them a few turns in action, and then it kind of helps make their mind up. So yeah, I think it being in Waterstones is kind of half the battle. So for some people,
I'm actually really surprised by that. You saying that some shops are saying, "Oh, Waterstones has it. Well, we don't want to have it. They'll take all our sales away." That seems like really backwards thinking. Even worse.
I agree. I mean, on one hand, I did agree because both these shops buy up front. So I suppose from their point of view, buying stock which was being sold by Waterstone just around the corner might have been dead money. But then on the other hand, if they'd have had it, say, somewhere reasonably prominent, people who did go to Waterstones might want to sort of support a small local shop, or like I say, not wait for the Christmas queues, would then see it just around the corner. So I didn't really understand it, but you know, it's their, you know, it's their decision to make. But yeah, it's a shame. But then of course you don't
Did
want
you
to
have a minimum purchase order for those small shops, or
No,
would
some take 2, some take 10 or so. I mean, it varies. I mean, there's a board game shop in Brighton called Dave's Books, and then of course there's the Dice Saloon Board Game Cafe. They're the sort of the most steady sellers outside of Waterstones, I think. And again, you know, they've been just so supportive, like right from the word go.
and Adam on Facebook has
Oh,
given
hello,
a
Adam.
picture that I'll have to check. That is, I'll pop this up in a wee bit. Is Adam the same Adam who does the giant games that I met at Aircon, who does the
Yes.
giant Turo and, you know, Hey That's My Fish?
That I believe so, because Adam, you were at Aircon, weren't you? I think that was the first time I became aware of Herefordshire Board Gamers.
But yeah, I'll thank you for posting that picture, and I will, if you're happy for me to show that on the stream, I will show this after we go through all these old pictures and talk about, yeah,
really?
what are your, how has 2020 been for you? I mean, you mentioned being sick for basically most of the year.
Most of it. Yeah, well, I got COVID not long. Well, I think I got it in February, and then it went, and then if that was it, it came back with a vengeance in April, not a couple of weeks after Aircon, and then yeah, intermittently until really just before Christmas. So most of 2020 was a write-off, really. I had periods where I felt okay. Somebody else posted up, I saw that they had it in October and still weren't feeling right, and I think that's the thing, you just right. And also because for me it came in waves, I was always waiting for the next wave, so I didn't want to get too into anything, you know, and working on games was one part of that. Yeah, because you the exhaustion, I mean, it's just, I've never known anything like it. So yeah, but that said, in the periods where I was feeling fine, you know, I got up to 4 or 5 weeks where I felt reasonably okay. I was sort of doing as much as I could, really. A lot of which was sort of, oh, there he is. God, he looks he looks really young. I think he's about 18 now. That kid.
It's only 3 years ago.
Blimey, in that case, he can't be. Surely not. Is it only 3?
Yeah, this was June 28th, 2017, so almost 4 years, let's say.
Oh, I find it hard to judge, really, but yeah, he's certainly a lot older than that now. 4 years older. So yeah, it wasn't a year for doing stuff, which was frustrating because when it started and lockdown kicked off, I really liked how a lot of game designers were doing like free print and play games, solo things, and there was that really nice kind of lockdown variant of Ticket to Ride where you printed the board and it was basically your house, and all the places you had to thread tracks to were places in, you know, rooms in your house. And I wanted to get on board with that, and I did. I started to, and then of course, yeah, just got too ill and had to sort of duck out for ages. But yeah, I feel fine now. So yeah, all being well, this year will be better than last.
And Sate is willing to share that she had acute symptoms for 6 or more weeks, but once they went, Sate is still mentally and physically exhausted, struggling with games like To Want and Sue You that Sate might have enjoyed in the past and really excelled at, and Sate gets winded just doing the dishes.
It is. I mean, that same with struggling with games. I mean, the brain fog. I mean, you just can't. You can't think. You know, some people said she doesn't make any sense. You can't form sentences. But I will say, I mean, I was kind of quite active on the long COVID forums on Facebook, and people, they do recover. I mean, the number of people. The number of people who said that they have noticed that their symptoms are abating is on the up, you know. So it because my fear was something like ME or chronic fatigue syndrome being like, you know, the legacy of it. But yeah, recovery does seem to be part of it. It just takes a while. It's yeah, it's no fun, but you'll get there. I'm sure you will. I didn't believe I was going to get better a few months ago. It just seemed impossible.
Now, I'm glad to hear that there's, a recovery. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed. I mean, obviously, again, lots of love to all those who have actually lost people who've maybe gone a few years earlier than they would have, if you know what I mean. And everyone just, I don't want to trivialize anything that's going on. I want to be very careful. But yeah, I wanted to actually ask about your Christmas sales of 2020.
well, they're mainly online, of course.
Yeah, of course.
We've got a couple of like WhatsApp mutual aid groups, and I posted on there just saying, look, if anyone's stuck for a present, just let me know. And so yeah, sold some kind of locally, just kind of like dropping off on people's doors. It's that sort of thing, like anything else, where you just have to adapt to the situation, really. So been sort of doing that. Yeah, but shops were open, of course, up until Christmas. So there was a usual little sort of spike in sales there. But my main source of income really over Christmas is the fairs. Like I'd sort of pack in like 20 odd usually. And they're anything from like a craft fair in a church to like, I don't know, a few trestle tables set up in the hall of a school. It's and like I say, they're really worth doing. They're lovely because there's a lot of kids and parents who like play, games like Cluedo and Sorry and Scrabble and stuff who haven't yet stumbled on this world. And I think when you're so immersed in it, it's easy to forget that. But when you sort of present a game that a family can play together, and you say, well, actually, there's a board game cafe just down the road from here where they've got like hundreds and hundreds of games, and you can eat cake and drink tea while you play games. I mean, it's it's a revelation for some people, which is really really lovely. And of course, it does the dice saloon no harm either. I'm always sending people down there. So,
and just lots of love and say it. Lots of love and all the best with the recovery there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also if you ever if you do feel stuck for someone to talk to about it, feel free to message me because I went through those sort of elements of feeling like I was never going to get better for quite a while. But yeah, I'm more than happy to chat about it. And also, if you're not already, the long COVID forums on Facebook are quite a source of they're a good source of help as well. So it's good to chat to people who understand what it's like.
So, yeah, I just want to appreciate how. Look, I don't want to blow smoke up anyone's posterior, but and this isn't by Rob. Thanks for being here, but I do just want to acknowledge that you are such a generous soul. I was like a bit bummed about just doing stuff, and then you sent me all your comics and stuff, and I read through all the comics, and then
but that's straight back at you as well, Ben, because you sent a game to my niece, which she loved, and my sister and her partner were so just to get something through the post that they went to the park and played the game, and it was apologies to sound like Pat Butcher. I had a chest infection. I did a podcast. I didn't sound good. So it goes both ways, I think. And you've always come across that way to me, that that you are likewise a generous, kind soul. And actually, I think ball games attract decent people. I mean, what can we say? I think there's a sense of community. I think even like on a basic level, where you get the designer forums on Facebook and so on, where like established designers will freely give their secrets to people who in another industry would be considered competition, but you just don't seem to get that in board games. It feels like a big family, which is lovely. So yeah, and again, thank you for sending that game to my niece, because she loved it. And yeah, my sister sent me a very funny video of them playing it.
Aww. I guess there's this contrasting thing pulling you in two different directions, because as a solo creator, you need to be selling these things for money. That is kind of your income. It's kind of your livelihood. It's easy to say, oh, well, I've got 100 of these. I can just give one to a friend. And for sure, in a sense, I could just send a copy of Dice and Ink to anyone. And there's, how did that come up? Was that just because Alex Scott mentioned? Wow. Alex is awesome. I'm going to leave that there. But I don't know what's going on. But anyway, sorry, that from, oh yeah. So I was talking about the two contrasting points where, from one point of view, yes, I've got Dice and Ink. I paid a lot of money. I didn't publish it myself. I contributed to it. I got, I think, 100, maybe it was 100, sent over from America. And I paid some amount for them, but it might not be reprinted. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is what I'm selling. In a sense, if someone says, hey, I'd like a copy, and they don't, I might be like, oh, you know what? Let me give you that thing. But you have to, at some point, be willing to say, even to your friends, no, I'm sorry, you need to pay for this. And
actually,
and there's that kind of, how do you square that circle?
Well, it's tricky. I mean, I think on one hand, what you say about your friends are the people that you would like to think would support you anyway. So, I mean, this is something that we, when I used to, I don't do it so much now, when I put on gigs in Brighton, quite often you get a band play and their friends would expect to get it for free because they knew the band. And you say, well, if they're your friends, surely paying £3 to see them play, which goes to them, isn't a huge ask. So, yeah, there's that point of view. But I mean, I think when you do something like when you make a gesture like that, like say for instance, give my niece the game that you did, it's always remembered. And also I think even if you sort of take it on a kind of the level that those things are sometimes reciprocated in kind, insofar as if one of my niece's friends' birthday for, and they're looking for a present, then they might think she'll really like this game, and that sort of thing. Well, Bez sent a copy to us, we're gonna going to support her back. And I think so that's an element as well, which I think you can expect a sort of certain comeback in that regard as well.
Like if you are, I guess when you're giving things away, okay, so I was talking to Brett Gilbert about this a while back and saying, I've got this crazy idea that I print off a ridiculous number of the L deck as cheap as I possibly can, get the tiny like half-sized ones just in a tuck box, and I do a thing where I sell maybe 500 of them at UK Games Expo for like £2 each, something ridiculous like that. So it's not literally giving them away for nothing, but it's like, you can get these for £2 each. Yeah, get like 5 of them, get them for your friends. And if you want to play Muckle, then not Micro Muckle or the Muckles where you write on the words, but yeah, Muckle where everyone needs their own deck, well, suddenly it's not expensive at all. If you want a 10-player game of that, well, 20 quid, that's hardly anything. That's not really, that wouldn't be looked at me making any income, but it would be looked at me getting it out there. Now, I talked about this, and I talked about wanting to give away lots of stuff, and Brett said, look, if you want to give away stuff, that's fine, but, and hello, J Fool's Guard, it's lovely to see you. But the question is, why are you doing this? Are you doing this for marketing because you think, okay, by giving it away, it's going to spread the word, they're going to play it with their friends, then they're going to want to buy more when you've put the price back up, or you're not giving it away? Is it because you just want to do some social goods, like some genuine charity work? Or is it like maybe for the warm, fuzzy feelings? Like, why are you doing it? And you could even say, well, maybe you're doing it because you want to show gratitude to your few select people. Maybe you're doing it because you want to get some testing done, because it's like, hey, this is my initial print run. I've printed 1,000 of this, but you know what? I am going to do another print run, and I'm aware that it's not perfect. I would like to get some good opinions. Or maybe you're, all of, why are you doing this? And I think this is such a key thing. And if you're doing it to be nice, then don't worry about the marketing thing. And if you're doing it for the marketing thing, think about that marketing thing. I don't think you can give something away for free and then assume, okay, because of that, the person's now going to that individual is going to pay for your next thing. It might come back around, but it might not. And I think you need to be okay with that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't expect to make a living out of doing board games at all. I mean, everything that I've done has always been sort of subsidized by, an actual income. And I'm marketing. In terms of marketing, I'll be honest, I'm pretty crap at marketing. I love sort of being on the other side of the table, talking to people and showing them how things work and doing the face-to-face. I could do that all the time. But when it comes to social media and so on, I do flounder, I'll admit it. But so when certainly with the drive of giving comics away, I think it's that sort of thing of just wanting to sort of reach out, really, first and foremost, and just let people know that, there's things there, that especially because having got nobbled with COVID as well early on, reading for me was like a real, it was a real godsend. So like suddenly sort of having all these comics, which to be honest, I'm not, they are just sitting there. I sort of thought it'd be much nicer if they were just being enjoyed by people. And if they passed a couple of hours in lockdown or a couple of hours of feeling poorly, then that's much more value than anything else I'm going to get out of them. So that was the sort of the thrust for that. But and I give games away mainly to sort of kids, or especially families who are having a bit of a rough time at the moment, just because you kind of want to sort of even if it's something small, even if the game never gets played, they still have the meeples. But it's just that thing of letting people know that that you're there for them, and that there are things, that nice things can still happen even though things are pretty bleak at the moment. Oh, that's a good game on the road. I'd recommend that to anyone.
Hello, Yoda. Lovely to see you. And I guess, it does kind of come around, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Even if it's, also what I've found when I've given games away to kids is that they're the best play testers and the best critics of something. They come back with so many enthusiastic ideas, like, half of which are, would throw the game out of all balance, and half of which are just like, on a budgetary level, just completely impractical. But just see, and actually going back to Fighting Fantasy Fest, which we were chatting about earlier, Steve Jackson was wandering around chatting to the stallholders and just milling around. And there was this kid, he was there about 7 or 8, and he obviously wanted to still talk to Steve Jackson. He was kind of like loitering around him, sort of out of sight. And his dad finally tapped Steve Jackson on the shoulder and he said, "Look, my son wants to speak to you." And Steve Jackson kind of like leant down to him, and there was just this outpouring, the floodgates opened, this enthusiasm for Warlock of Firetop Mountain, how he'd finally completed it. And I thought, like, when Steve Jackson wrote that book, like, his kids' parents quite possibly hadn't been born yet, and so that sort of legacy to have. And I also think, if you want to sort of send, it's a thing of making memories. If I was sent something like that when I was feeling low, I'd never forget how it made me feel as a result of it. And I think that's sort of, it's a kind of a decent thing to spread around if you can. And we're privileged in that position. We've got something that we can sort of send out to somebody to sort of make their day a bit brighter. So, and and if they end up buying a copy, I'm certainly not going to complain. But I wouldn't say it's my main sort of motivation for doing that. So, which is good, because otherwise I've been disappointed on many occasions.
You mentioned your other source of income.
Oh, well, I was a care worker for a long time, about 20 years. Now that's more or less left me, really, because 10 years of austerity has pretty much killed that as a form of income. And so now music makes a small income, and I run an eBay shop, which I've been doing for a long time as well. So at the moment, my main source of income is helping the Dice Saloon sell their stock for them, because obviously they can't sell it directly. So we're just trying to offload stuff to try and keep them open.
So let me ask, and thank you for lurking, Sate. Thank you for being here. Do you have any tips for aspiring comic artists, writers, or game designers, or anyone who wants to make their own things?
Well, yes. With either, I would say, immerse yourself in it. I think the chance, so if you're going to be doing a board game or a comic anyway, you're probably fairly well immersed in it anyway. Certainly sort of like just read all the sorts of things that you love and enjoy, but also make sure you read the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think you enjoy either. For me, I mean, I've made myself read a lot of like superhero stuff, which I'm not interested in, but you learn so much from stuff that you wouldn't necessarily like yourself. And the same with board games. You know, any game can teach you something about what you're going to do, even if it's something you're going to avoid putting into what you finally do yourself. I mean, I would say brush up on social media. I need to do that myself. But also, be part of the community. I think that's definitely the best thing. That's something I learned, especially with Paupers Ladder, because that was the first time I really reached out to the community of game designers and players, because up until that point, it was all very sort of Brighton based, what I was doing. So yeah, be part of the community, reach out and, you know, listen to the feedback you get. But also, yeah, enjoy it, because, you know, unless the stars are aligned in a way that doesn't happen very often, none of us are going to get rich off this. At best, we might be able to make a living, you know, maybe subsidize with something else, but make sure you enjoy it, because that is going to be the most important part.
That's really lovely words, and yeah, kind of reaching out. I would like to ask a wee bit about BN1, because it is such a local thing. Do you think that I mean, you can't fake this kind of stuff. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to make a game about, actually, should you? And hello, Ross, it's lovely to have you. I think being part of the community is important for feedback, but like Paul says, you get fun out of the human connection.
Oh yeah, definitely. I couldn't do it without that. I mean, yeah, I mean, Christmas is my favourite time of year, just because of all the fairs and like little kind of community events that I do. Yeah, I mean, I could do that all the time. But yeah, sorry, Bez, you were saying something.
No. I interrupted myself. That's the way it
goes
sometimes on this show.
True, yeah. Oh, there's my main play tester there, looking happy.
Oh, nice. I kind of was talking about BN1, and it ties in with this genuine human connections, where from a marketing perspective, you could say, okay, I'm going to isolate what I could make a game about. Okay, I'm going to make a game about local stuff. Okay, I'm going to make a game about Glasgow. Okay, and sure, Mandela's already done it, and you've done one about Brighton, and I could do another game about London. I mean, London can have more than one game. Maybe I could make a game about, I don't know, Haringey, and then it might sell quite well in the North London parts. But yeah, where's the genuine connection? But at the risk of getting too cold and calculating, I would like to ask, do you think that having BN1 be so bright and focused helped you reach an audience and find that audience?
Yeah, definitely, because when I did BN1, first of all, like I said, when I was doing all the fairs, the question I got asked most was, is it like Monopoly? And that was being asked. I kept a tally. I got asked that 14 times in one day once, and that was always the question, is it like Monopoly? But as years went on, the question started changing. People started saying, what kind of game is it like? And I'd say, well, what sort of games do you play? And then like Catan, Ticket to Ride. So there was a real shift. But I think that what helped, people that bought BN1 who may not have been into sort of board gaming in the same way that you or I are, would then be more receptive to Paupers Ladder, because they were familiar at least with sort of tone, which isn't that different. So I think that building that kind of that sort of audience through BN1, it did help. It did put Paupers Ladder in good stead, because they were already there, and they bought BN1, and then, you know, they might have gone to the Dice Saloon or somewhere like it. They might have started buying other games that were a little more kind of hobby sort of oriented. So by the time Paupers Ladder came along, they'd kind of been subverted. So because I do know that there were quite a few people who bought BN1 simply because it was about Brighton, first and foremost, and then played it, didn't expect to even necessarily get it out of the box as such, and then found that they enjoyed it. You know, and similarly, I know people that have not done much more than just read the cards, which is fine. You know, people get that out of it. But I think it definitely helped lay the foundations, and it gave me confidence as well to do it. I couldn't have done Paupers Ladder cold. It would, yeah. It wouldn't have been the best.
So we don't need to get into the full, this is how you play the game and all that. But yeah, what kind of game is BN1? What kind of complexity is it? Because there's a lot of bits.
It's actually, I mean, it's a lot simpler than it looks out the box. I mean, it's a roll and move kind of game. I mean, like I say, Talisman and Dungeon Crawlers inspired it. So everything in it could transpose to a dungeon crawler, except it's set in the streets of Brighton, and the kind of characters that you meet. Yeah, that's one of the fairs. That's the open market in Brighton. There's a butcher's just behind us, so you end up in all sorts of places. So yeah, it's designed as a family game, but with some kind of complexities. But it's the sort of thing that if you hadn't played board games at all, you might find it a little overwhelming to begin with. But then if you were used to kind of playing more strategic games, you'll probably find it quite sort of straightforward and maybe even sort of simplistic. Yeah, but I think what surprised people, because I think this is one of the enduring popularity of Monopoly, is that you can get it out and you know that roughly everyone will know how to play it. Then same like with Guess Who and that. But when you get a new game out, someone's got to explain it. But I think when people start doing that, it does kind of foster the confidence in playing games that people aren't necessarily used to, and then getting sort of deeper and deeper into it. Especially, I mean, if you're a parent as well, anything that your kids enjoy doing is irresistible, isn't it? Because something you can do with them, you would enjoy. So yeah, I have had people who, by the time Paupers Ladder came out, had kind of embraced the hobby. So yeah, it definitely made an audience.
Well done on everything that you've achieved. And
thank you, Bez.
As we wind up, let me ask the more difficult questions.
Okay.
So, what are you proudest of?
Oh, I mean, I think, oh gosh, well, oh golly, nothing. No, I'm pleased. Also, pride's a funny one, isn't it? But I'm pleased with having been able to do what I enjoy for so long, like both in terms of music and also in terms of the board gaming. I do feel incredibly sort of privileged with that. I suppose what I feel proud of, I suppose, is when people come back and say what they've got out of something. And again, I'm a sucker for like things that families enjoy together, and so when people come back and say how much they enjoyed, BM1 or Zombie, well, any of them really, that's always really nice. I think my proudest moment was at a fair when a kid was wandering past and she saw BM1 and she shouted out to her mum. She said, "That is the best game I've ever played." And I was like, "Oh." And then her mum said, "What other games have you played?" And she sort of thought for a few seconds and she said, "Twister." So I thought, well, to one person, they enjoyed it more than they enjoyed Twister, So it's the little things, really. That's what keeps me going. God, I put up any old crap.
No, that's going to be that child's introduction into board gaming.
Exactly. So by the time Paupers Ladder, she's probably playing like, Scythe and yeah. She could probably teach me some stuff about gaming now. So yeah.
If I like that. What would you hope for your future? What's your biggest hope for, let's say, 2021, but also what's your biggest hope for 20 years' time?
Oh, so I will be 65 then. I would. I mean, I always think about the next thing. I'm not too good at thinking. I'm going to put that on the box. I'm going to handwrite it in marker pen on all of them.
Better than Twister. Yeah.
See, that's what should go on the sell sheet, isn't it? If there's another edition. If I can just carry on doing what I'm doing in that time, then I will be. That's my nephew. He just won at Pokemon, the board game. So yeah.
Oh.
The only thing to do when you wake up at 5:30 a.m. is to play board games. So yeah, see, the kids love them. If I can just carry on doing what I enjoy and not feel like I've had to sort of compromise too much, then I'll be happy.
That sounds lovely. And is there anything at this point that you would like to? Oh, I was going to show Adam's photo.
So yes, giant meeples. Yeah.
Let me check out. But is there anything else that you want to share with people, or anything else that you want to say before we start wrapping up?
Well, like I say, if there's a couple of people who said that they've sort of been suffering with COVID-like symptoms and the long COVID hold. Like I say, if you do want to chat to somebody who is both conversant with that and board gaming, then you can find me on these channels. Other than that, I would say watch the stars. There's going to be a Paupers Ladder expansion this year, and if you are thinking of designing games, I would say go for it. Never been a better time to do it, really. Oh, there they are. They are huge, aren't they? It's so
and
ridiculous.
They've got the murderers. So
The
pink and
murderers.
white.
Yeah. They could bully the bullying carcass on those chaps.
Oh, it has been such a lovely chat. Thank you for joining us.
Enjoyed it. It's been lovely.
And no, thank you. And thank you to everyone in chat. Everyone's been amazing with all the questions, all the kindness, all the wit, all the humor. Everything's been lovely. And
so, morning.
Pardon?
It's been a lovely morning. I look forward to the next 300.
Thank you. And a reminder that I am not streaming every day. After tomorrow's epic show, I am going to start taking some short breaks. But we have talked about so much. We started off talking about Reykholt and graphic novels. We decided that we need to talk more about Doctor Who. We talked about writing, about whether comics counts as books. We talked about Calvin and Hobbes.
Yay.
And Mouse and all sorts of things. And we didn't really explore that thing about merchandising, because I understand what you mean about Bill Watterson deciding, okay, Calvin and Hobbes shouldn't be merchandised, but I'm not sure that is necessarily, I'm in two minds about it.
It's admirable, just because of the amount of money he'd have turned down. I mean, it takes conviction, but on the other hand, so many kids in their lives.
I don't see merchandising necessarily as a bad thing.
I think
if you were to start saying, okay, Calvin and Hobbes cereal, it's like, what's this got to do with anything? But if it's like, Calvin and Hobbes t-shirts, why shouldn't Bill Watterson
be? And the irony is, in the end, the only people who benefited from that were bootleggers, because there's loads of Calvin and Hobbes merchandise. It's just none of it's official. So people have made money out of it. But yeah, I mean, loads of kids could probably do with having a hug off a stuffed Hobbes toy. I don't see anything wrong with that. But yeah, it's a funny one. But yeah, I mean, at least he had the courage of his convictions, I suppose. But yeah.
And yeah, apparently it does remind us that Hackwisoulis is awesome every time. I hope I'll see you around someday, Paul.
Oh, I hope so too. And does that looks like a guitar in your picture there? If you
yeah,
anything, I'd love to hear more of that. And yeah, if you're ever in or near Brighton, once lockdown's over, you know where I'll be. Dice Saloon.
So yeah, what else? We talked quite a bit about COVID and how that all works out. We talked about kindness and making those real connections. We talked about Waterstones and how that operates and how it's actually turned some people off, which was kind of crazy. We talked about Big Meeples. Oh yeah, the Big Meeples. Yeah, we talked about the game books, as Michelle reminded us. I've made a little note. It says that T means that I've got to think about making a topic, but I do then have to read back through this book at some point. And yeah, reaching out to people and taking feedback is your tip, which I think is so good. And try and experience stuff that you might not necessarily enjoy.
Yeah, definitely.
It has been
so long. Well, hope I see you around someday too. When things are up and running again, I guess we'll all be able to hook up again.
Fingers crossed it will happen in the relatively near future. Until then, of course, everyone stay safe, stay healthy, still alive. Try to keep a little bit of joy in your hearts, however you can. If you wish to follow Paul,
well, you've seen the quality of my stuff.
Well, how do you most like to be followed?
I tend to Facebook
streets?
Is the thing that I'm most active on. Instagram and Twitter as well. But yeah, Facebook Bedsit Games is probably the best bet. That's where I post stuff up most regularly. Oh, there we are. Cool. Yeah, that'll do it.
And that's up in the YouTube or Facebook. You should see that also. And if you aren't aware of me, how are you even watching this? But I'm a game designer. I'm stuffbybez.com, which is a really... I know Donald Dennis told me not to say this. Said, okay, start over again. Don't say your website's bad. But It's going to get better. It's like a work in progress. Currently, it's just lots of links to other places. So there is stuffbybez.com. You can also go to stuffbybez.bigcartel.com if you want to buy my stuff. You can buy a print and play edition of the L deck, which I think is probably the best value thing you'll ever buy if you do print and play stuff. And then twitter.com/stuffbybez, where I tweet quite regularly, instagram.com/stuffbybez, where I share pictures of all sorts of pretty things that I just found made me smile. Twitch.tv/stuffbybez. I stream most days at 10 a.m. UK time. YouTube.com/stuffbybez for the old episodes. Stuffbybez.com/discord. If you click on that, then that will redirect you to my Discord channel. You can share pictures of cats, pictures of food, or just talk about things and play games together. But that has been us. And now it's the time to bring it over to you and say thank you. One more time, thank you, everyone. It is such a delight. That is what keeps me doing this. And what are you up to? What are you doing today? Over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to. So if you are looking forward to something, that if you are maybe, oh my God, I need to achieve this, but if you want to be held accountable, if you've got some hopes or ambitions, if you've got something super exciting or boring or serious or frivolous, let us know, because we are interested and I am here to support all good intentions. But while people are pondering that a wee bit, what are you up to, Paul? What are you up to today?
Well, this was my only actual thing for today, but I'm gonna go and do some game work. I am supposed to be seeing a friend later for a little social distance stroll, and I dare say I'll be walking the dog at some point. So that's nice. Today wrapped up.
So a lot of gentle endeavours. That does sound super lovely.
Trying today, yeah.
I am going to treat myself to a wee bit of a nap because I have not slept nearly as much as I would like last night. I'm going to have a wee bit of a midday nap. I am meeting my support group later on tonight. I've got a wee support group of a few other people where we talk about stuff and then we just chat online. It's quite nice. I think there's only 2 of us based in the UK and 3 people elsewhere. I'm going to chat to Chris about stuff, but mainly napping. I might treat myself to something tasty.
Nap and tasty. Yeah, that sounds like a good day.
Scott says a super boring day ahead for me, proofreading a database of bathroom fixtures and fittings. And Hal is looking forward to finishing changes in the paper that Hal has been doing for work. Hopefully the 3rd and final version. All the best with that. I understand I thought that was final, but I need to do it.
Oh, yes.
All the best. Oh my gosh, it is an even day, which means that at the start of February, I made kind of 6 resolutions, and 3 of them are about things that I do every second day. So every second day, I make sure to floss my teeth because, I do brush my teeth every day, but flossing my teeth every second day, it feels like, it's not too bad. You know what I mean? For me, that's an achievement. Every second day, I try to do an exercise that isn't just going outside in the morning. So I do, and also I'm going to try to do a tiny bit more drawing with my letter shapes. I might even see if I can finish. Let me actually pick them off the thing here. So this is, where am I up to? I'm up to you. So these are my letter shapes, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters to go. And if you're wondering why there are some letters missing, it's because they're up at the top. So that's it for the next version of the L deck, which is going to be for categorical. I'm just going to go. Sure thing. Michelle is walking the dog and setting up playtest feedback forms. Oh, exciting. Which game are you playtesting? That sounds really cool. And Ross, it's lovely having you eating some leftover Thai curry for lunch. And Ross was streaming so late last night. Ross was still just starting a game when I was like, okay, I need to start getting off to bed, so I'm going to just lurk and even mute it for a wee bit just so I can concentrate on this email that I need to send, and then it still took ages. And yeah, it's been lovely having you all, and been reading Good to Great about corporate structure and strategy. I don't know why I'm reading it, but it's very interesting. Why not? It's always good to have new knowledge in your brain. Yeah, get that into your thinking-y bits. And I am 100% agreeing with this. Although there's a couple of... Is that a couple of missing emoticons? Will Cook Xate is great for board games. There we go. Yeah, get stuff into your head. That's a good enough reason. Gain knowledge. It has been lovely seeing you. And I want to say, for my next streams, I can no longer, as of Friday, I can no longer say I stream at 10 a.m. UK time every day. I was, honestly, on Monday, I was thinking about Friday, and I was already feeling a sense of loss. So, but I am committed to not streaming on Friday or Sunday. And the following week, I'm having a 3-day break. But look at that thing that will redirect you to my Google Calendar, which will tell you what am I streaming. I will just tell you. Tomorrow is my 300th episode. It will be bloomin' epic. There's going to be like about 30 faces that you will recognize as previous guests, some amazing people. I am so grateful to all of them. I'm going to be streaming from 10 a.m. until maybe 7 p.m. So it is going to be quite a long stream. And I'm going to be taking some breaks, which I don't normally do, but I'll let the video play. Maybe there will be a guest, but I'll have a little thing saying, Bez is coming back in a minute, just because you need some comfort breaks. You can't go that long without going to the toilet, you know what I mean? But also I'll have wee things at a meeting, and I will be doing a bit more full body stretching. So expect a wee bit of dancing at times. So yeah, I'm going to have like people joining me pretty much every half hour. I'm so excited for it. And then Friday, I believe that Dina was planning some sorts of stream, but I need to check with Dina. But that's not going to be on my channel. I'll just host that. Mentoring Dutch Yoda on Saturday, skipping Sunday. Monday, I'm meeting David Turksey. Tuesday, I'm drawing stuff on Patreon. And then next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm skipping all of those. And if you want to know further than that, look at my stuff bybez.com/streams. That seems to be mainly what I use my website for, kind of offering easy little redirects, which at least I'm using it for something, I guess. But yeah, share, spread the word. And sorry, and Michelle, regarding the playtest forms, it's not the game. Well, don't sell your shorts like that, but just say you're not a designer yet, or, you know, I feel like saying, oh, I'm not creative like that. It's kind of selling yourself short a wee bit. But that sounds awesome. And yeah, I hope that you have a good time. I hope that you find it fulfilling or you feel compensated. And Yoda is working, lurking, playing Valheim, watching favorite TV show, creating preset rounds for playtesting a game. Oh yeah. So that's going to be a good thing. So if you want to know more about Dutch Yoda's game, pop in on Saturday. That sounds lovely. Yoga with Bez, suggests Alex. Don't expect any, like, I'm not going to be doing, or am I going to be doing sun salutations? Could I? That's an idea. Could my camera, hey, maybe we should try it. Like, I don't think it would work. I'm going to say no, but I'm not ruling it out completely. That's all I'm going to say. And someone's excited for Turksey. So, yeah, that is the end of my show. If you want to share any of those things, then please do share, do tweet, do let people know what's coming up. Like, if you think that if you've got any questions for Dave Turksey, then feel free to share them on the day. You know the drill, like tomorrow it's all... But this is the part that it's been lovely, but we need to end sometime, don't we?
It has been lovely. Thank you so much, Bez.
Oh, and Ian is having a fry up. Sates is
that's a
apparent
good idea.
#1 Turksy fan. Oh, we've got. Let's go to who. Who should we go to? The Boards Gaming people, UK Games. You know what? I'm thinking UK Games Expo because I don't. Yeah, it kind of feels like it's the same three people that I really like. It's the people that I like are UK Games Expo, then Amadeus, because Amadeus plays great music and piano, and Erin Shea live is just full on energy rocking out. Which one do you fancy, Paul?
Oh gosh, Amadeus.
Amadeus.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to raid Amadeus. So that's the raid message. Feel free to copy paste some of that in chat and send it over so that Amadeus gets all the love hearts when you go in there. And Amadeus music. And that brings us to the very end. Michael is Michael streaming? Show more. Oh, because I had to click on show more. You know what? Raid, let's do that. Idol Michael. Because I need to remember to click the show more. We are going to go and support Idol Michael. We will do that, but I'm going to try and change it up going forwards. So, yeah, it's not the same person. Not too many times in a row, if you know what I mean. But yeah, that is the end of the stream. There is nothing left to say, is there?
I think we've covered everything.
That's it. Well, bye. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go.
Oh, pleasure.
Bye-bye. I like that pun. You know what? I'm going to award points for that pun.
Got it right in the end.
You know, Sates, you award points for that. Aquasulis, give Aqua 100 points. I don't know. 100 seems reasonable. How many points?
As many as we can give.
Hey, no, not as many as we can give. That's going crazy. That's like all the nines. That's just.
I might save them for tomorrow.
Well,
you might need them.
Anyway, so that is it. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, Alex can't do it. I need to do it. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.